It's fantastic to see you all sharing knowledge with each other about how you're approaching observability, how you're approaching monitoring, cloud, containers, and other subjects that are relevant across your organizations. Many of you I've just gotten to meet today for the first time after collaborating with you over email or Slack or various other virtual forums over the years. So it's always good to put faces to names and to see all the energy out here. In addition to the hallway track you had this morning where you're seeing demos and chatting with your friends and new friends and old friends, we've got a full day of presentations and workshops planned for you here today, where hopefully we'll give you some skills that you can take back to work and put in place on day one, and hopefully you'll get to learn from, again, continue to learn from your colleagues. But observability wasn't always the top of mind for everybody in this room like it is today, and everybody in our industry like it is today. When Datadog was born nearly a decade ago in 2010, the world was a much different place. Our industry was going through a very rapid evolution. We were in a spot where the cloud giants that we rely on right now barely existed. AWS, I think, had 2 services. Google Cloud, I think, had App Engine. There wasn't much there just yet. And whether it was a public cloud or a private cloud, dynamic infrastructure wasn't the norm that we run into today. How many folks are doing something in cloud providers right now? Every hand in the room, right? If I asked you that question in 2010, probably 2 hands would have gotten up. So the world was a very different place. Similarly, I see lots of smartphones out in your hands. The iPhone and Android had been out for like a year and a half, maybe 2 years. This didn't exist. So the things that we rely on today for everything from how did I get to this venue this morning, because I would have not been able to do it without my phone, to how did I order dinner last week, to how did I answer the pager, was all a very different situation. We didn't have these technologies with us. And so, again, by the number of phones I see out in the audience and people checking their email and such, it seems like you also can't be productive without your phone, just like I can't. So, some other differences. Who believes in, almost everybody in this room has probably heard the word DevOps. It's become a household term. Like, you can't see it in job descriptions, I see it in blog posts, I see it in every presentation. It's the thing, it's a term you hear everywhere now. At the time when Datadog was launching, that term was maybe 6 months old. It had just kicked off here in Europe at an event called DevOps Days Ghent, the first of many in a series that are now all over the world. And so we were just starting to talk about why it's important for us to have good cultures of collaboration in our organizations, why automation helps us to scale, why metrics and sharing help us to learn from each other and set goals that are attainable and aligned across the company. And speaking of automation, like the concept of infrastructure as code, CI/CD, other automation practices, we take those for granted today. Most everyone in this room, if I say Chef or Kubernetes or Docker or Ansible or one of these tools, Terraform, that you use to manage your infrastructure, you'll all raise your hand to one of those. At the time, again, you wouldn't. It was probably a world of bash scripts, maybe some CF engine, not much more, right? All of these were fresh ideas. We were trying to apply best practices from years of software development to how we ran our infrastructure. While all these concepts were new, the path the industry was taking, where we wanted to go as a community and as individuals, was very clear. And here at Datadog, what we wanted to do was help to accelerate that movement, to help you get to a spot where you could reach these goals more quickly. And we believe that if we built tools that helped you enable these DevOps principles, we could help organizations eliminate many of the cross-team frictions and challenges that existed, where teams were fighting each other rather than well aligned. We could help them build software faster, ship products faster, and operate them more reliably. And so we built Datadog. The goal was to build a platform that would help your teams understand the health of your applications and infrastructure, whether you were in DevOps or some other part of the business, QA, business analysts, what have you. You could all look at the same data, share that data, and collaborate across those teams and organizational silos. Because it turns out when you share the same data, you fight the problem and not each other. And so we wanted to build that shared understanding of your business and the services and infrastructure that powered it with that common set of tooling. Based on the number of faces in the room today, I think we've succeeded, but there's still more to come. So now if we fast forward to 2019, I've got a room full of people here that know about all these technologies we just talked about. The world around us has changed clearly, but our mission hasn't. So all that talk about private clouds, you probably told me I was crazy for shutting down my server in a colo facility and putting it in AWS or Google or one of their cloud providers. We just saw everybody raise their hands. It's now the default, almost in many organizations. So we at Datadog, what we did was we built deep integrations with all those cloud providers to help you accelerate your migrations, run more efficiently, identify places where you can be more reliable, use all that data back in the understanding of your business and your infrastructure. But these technologies, they've also done something else. They've not just helped us move faster in terms of spinning up our infrastructure, they've also helped our organizations expand quickly globally. If a customer asks me to spin servers up all over the world with a few API calls and a credit card, I can have servers deployed on all 6 continents that have permanent human residence on them, right? So wherever your users might need you, you can be there very quickly. And of course, Datadog's there to help you support that throughout those rollouts. But there's just one pesky continent left, and I think there's people from AWS, Microsoft, and Google in the room. When are we getting an Antarctica region? I need full global coverage. No? Nobody wants to raise their hand. But in all seriousness, with that global expansion, the world around our businesses have also changed. We're seeing new regulatory requirements around privacy, compliance, data sovereignty, security, and other things, right? And so to support you, our European community, one of the things that we did recently was launch a European region of Datadog. This lets you keep your data where you need it for, again, for those regulatory or compliance reasons. Helps you maintain it locally, close to your users, close to your infrastructure, to help your businesses operate as you see fit. So if you're interested in learning more about our EU region and how to deploy your data there, stop by any of the demo stands. We're happy to talk you through either that migration or that setup process. The other thing that's changed is, again, automation's become the new norm. Again, we talked about Terraform, Chef, Docker, Kubernetes. They've all allowed us to automate our infrastructure. But they've also given rise to other ideas. If we can monitor our infrastructure, if we can automate our infrastructure, we probably want to automate other things too. And so as we've been able to scale our cloud and our data centers and other environments, we've also looked to scale our monitoring by offering things like monitoring as code. So now you can automate not just your systems, but also Datadog using those same tool sets. Again, using a Terraform provider or any of these other automation tools, you can codify the monitoring you want for that infrastructure, the dashboards, the alerts, and every downtimes and everything in between using those same tools so that you're not using disjoint systems. And you can have a monitoring system that's as dynamic as the infrastructure that you wish to monitor. We've also seen a rise of a surprising number of new technologies. I guess not that's surprising. There's new things every day. And it's very difficult for us to necessarily keep up with every single one of those tools. But all of you in this room have helped us get there. From distributed data stores to containers to orchestrators, caches, queues, and everything in between. It's been a very fast-paced changing world. But it's you that's our community that's helped us keep up. We've had thousands of open source contributors join us in our open source projects, add support for new languages in APM, new data that we collect from various sources and technologies. So take a moment to thank the folks around you. There's probably somebody in this room that's built a tool you're using. And so this is a great opportunity to meet them in person and share more. But some of you couldn't leave this observability and DevOps best practices just at work, and you started to apply them at home. And that's been the most interesting thing for me. Because whether it was your solar panels and you're trying to see if your home will be powered tonight, or your kegerator because you want to make sure your friends have beer when they come over this weekend, you found all kinds of crazy ways to use these ideas of metrics and sharing in your personal lives. And that ingenuity and openness to sharing your stories and sharing how you build these things has been very inspirational, and so we're always looking to hear more. If you've got some crazy Datadog in the wild stories, whether it's, I heard about somebody monitoring a sailboat last week, all kinds of crazy things that you're doing at home with monitoring and with metrics, we'd love to hear about it. It's always fun. There's always fun stories to share. But all these new technologies also introduced quite a bit of complexity as well. As we went from monoliths to microservices, we needed more ways to help understand your environments. Metrics alone were not enough. And so a few years ago, we added traces and logs as new data types that we now collect. These traces let you see user requests as they fan out across your infrastructure, because it turns out every problem today is solved by a new service or a new microservice. It used to be with containers. Before that, it was something else. Today, we just split everything up. Logs help you audit and debug your environments and better understand what's going on as it's happening. We'll have workshops on both of these later today, so please come check them out and learn hands-on how to get the most out of those technologies. With all these interesting developments, I won't spoil them all for you. There's new features coming later as well about these areas. But with these new data sets, they've also enabled us to build higher level features that help you orient yourself and build context. So things like service maps that help you understand the changing environment in which your applications are deployed. You can orient yourself as those dependencies change day to day. Because I don't know about you, every time I draw an infrastructure diagram or a service diagram, it's out of date tomorrow, right? So this has been super exciting for me to automate myself out of having to do that. But whether you're onboarding somebody new or trying to understand the impact of a code change or an infrastructure change you're going to make, these visualizations help you build that context and understand how all the puzzle pieces fit together. We're also using that data to train models, machine learning models like Watchdog. Watchdog is our automated alerting and error detection system. It identifies faults across all of your environments without you having to think about what the thresholds and configurations for that might be. It's constantly looking at all of your metrics, all of your traces, and the data that you submit to us, and looking for faults that will become user impacting events. Very high signal, very little noise, catches problems all the time. And so from automatically identifying network issues in cloud providers, because we look at data across all of the cloud providers, to identifying memory leaks from that new application version you deployed, issues with Docker, Nginx, or other technologies. We're always adding new stories and new capabilities to help you stay ahead of the problems that might impact your services and your users. But Watchdog and Service Maps are just two examples of the ways we're looking to make your teams more productive by building context, by sharing knowledge, and automating away the toil that keeps you busy every day. You'll learn about many more of services and features that we're launching today throughout the presentations, but these are a good example. But while we have all these critical pieces for understanding our backend systems, we're missing one very important piece to the puzzle. And we wanted to try to break down that one last silo, if you will, although I'm sure we'll find more silos later. There's always more room to help people collaborate. And that's the user experience. What's the point in all these servers we spin up if the end users can't hit the website? Or if we don't actually understand if they're happy, right? Because at the end of the day, everything we do is to serve our customers, whether they be whether it be B2B, B2B, halfway across the world, across the street from you. When we build companies, when we build services, it's hopefully to support our end users, right? And so as we look at that, we needed to find ways to find more angles on that user experience. And so there's many axes we can look at, but the two I'd like to focus on today are availability and performance. It might be obvious that if your service isn't online, or your website isn't accessible, or your mobile app is crashing, you won't make money because it's down. Seems pretty straightforward. Turns out all of those outages also have a pretty long-term impact. A recent Akamai study found that a single outage could result in users permanently abandoning your service up to about 9% of them. So long after your website was back online, you resolved that PagerDuty incident, you looked at that dashboard in Datadog, it was all green. Turns out your users may just never come back because they thought you were down. So turns out availability is important. A lot of that availability isn't necessarily powered by your backend systems. Could be fiber lines cut between you and your data center. Could be issues on the user's end, wherever it might be. Turns out availability matters, and it's not always something that you can detect with backend server metrics. Similarly, turns out performance is actually something we're even less forgiving about. Akamai found in that same study that 28 users that experienced a slow website 28% of them would abandon the site entirely and never return. Turns out we're more frustrated by slow than down. So that impacts your branding, your credibility, and your bottom and top line revenue. The BBC found something very similarly. For every 1 second of load time they add to their web properties, they lose an additional 10% of their users. Microsoft, Google, Pinterest, and others have all found very similar stats as they look at how they can improve revenue by going faster. So performance matters both to the bottom and top line of your business. And it's something that we all know, so how do we fix it? Well, we clearly need to look at it from a few different angles, not just that server side we've been talking about so far. We can't just look at that experience from the back end because nearly 80% of end user experience time is actually spent in the front end. Bad ads, JavaScript, high latency, problems with your CDNs, everything in between. So to help address that, we're excited to launch a whole suite of new user experience monitoring features that we'll be demoing for you in the sessions today, as well as over at the demo stations in the main room there. Datadog synthetics and browser tests, many of you are using these today already. How many folks are having this ping their websites? Lots of hands. They allow you to understand the performance and availability of your websites and APIs from over 13 different locations around the world. We've also just recently launched a beta for something called private locations, where you can spin up a point of presence of Datadog synthetics anywhere you want, under your desk, in your car, in an office that you might actually want to monitor from and see where the end users might be. You get to actually see the performance from where your users are. Similarly, we'll be demoing RUM, the beta of our RUM and browser logging features. These are new capabilities that let you collect performance data about how your real users are experiencing your web properties in real time. So front-end errors, performance stats, etc. So I encourage you to stop by and take a look at that. And of course, mobile SDKs. We talked about how mobile phones are now pervasive. Turns out all of you have them, all of you are building apps on them. It's like a $2.3 trillion industry for e-commerce is just on mobile alone. So monitoring that experience is quite important. And since becoming such a critical part of your business, we wanted to let you collect RUM, real user experience, metrics, logs, and other telemetry from those services. So we've got SDKs for iOS, Android, and other platforms coming soon. Again, if you stop by any of the demo stations, we can talk to you about that a little bit more. So all of this is with a goal to tie that end user experience back to the back end experience that you've been focused on until now, and give you the story end to end. And these are just a few of the features we'll be sharing with you here today. We've got a whole bunch of new stuff coming as well. There are many more exciting developments that I won't spoil for you right now. But with even all these changes in the news features, the goals that we have really remain the same. We're here to help you collect and share data so that you can be more productive, so that you can make more informed decisions about your business and collaborate with your colleagues. We're here to build context and connections across all of that data, so you're not drowning in it and you can make sense of it in ways that make you more productive. You can reason about the health of your business, the services and the infrastructure, and other parts of your environment. You can collaborate with your colleagues across teams, even if those are teams that you might not normally have worked with, because you all have a shared understanding of the data. You can focus on improving availability and resiliency, rather than duking it out over who introduced the memory leak, who deleted a feature flag, who broke the system. It'll all be really clear, because it's in data. Nobody fights the data, so they don't fight each other. But today's event exists for very similar reasons. If you've never been to a Datadog Summit before, they represent our journey to understand and learn from our global Datadog community. They're not just for us to be here preaching to you about what we believe is the right way to do things. Our goal is to build connections based in each of your local communities wherever we come visit. We want you to share knowledge, establish communities of practice, meet other users in your local areas, and share tips around how you're approaching observability or resiliency engineering or other initiatives that you might have in your organization. In each city, we learn way more from you than you learn from us, so thank you. I can't wait to see today what we learned from our friends at New10, Delivery Hero, Kiwi, and Orderbird, and those are just the folks that we've worked with on stage here throughout preparing for this event. I see lots of faces out here, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you're working on and how we can do better based on what you teach us. So you're not just here to hear from those of us that are on stage. Everybody to the left of or the right of you has something to teach you and is the real expert here today. They all have powerful experiences that are highly relevant. So let's use this summit to break out of another set of silos, not just within our organization, but across our organizations. Let's use it to share that knowledge of what we learned here today and elsewhere, and connect our divided teams. Whether you've just completed that cloud migration and you really want to share how you did it or how you automated it, or maybe you've adopted a container or orchestrator technology and you want to share the lessons you've learned there. I know the Datadog team just went through this in our own environments, migrating to Kubernetes. We'd love to share our experiences. We'd also like to learn from you how we could do it better. Maybe you found a fun culture hack that helps you increase productivity in your organization, like the next session we'll hear about in a few minutes. There's always ways for us to learn from each other on how to be more productive and how to be more successful. So we often forget that the things that we're doing are super interesting to others, even if they're a little boring to ourselves. So with that, I hope you'll use today as an opportunity to learn about observability best practices and resiliency best practices and everything else that we've talked about here today. Share your experiences with each other and enjoy the open spaces, the happy hour we'll have tonight at 6, and all the other activities we have planned for you today.